Hello friends, welcome back to Juris Lens. Today we shall discuss legal rules and society. Dear friends, when I say legal rules and society, we have to consider first the theoretical aspect of law's essential functions. Number two, the practical relationship between legal rules and the society in which they operate. And number three, the factors that determine how legal rules develop. Dear friends, when I say the nature and function of law, remember law exists for the sake of order. Hence, law and legal rules act as a control upon human behavior. But some legal rules simply control behavior like prohibitions. But a more prominent function of law is channeling it, meaning they actively guide human action into specific acceptable paths. Dear friends, the essential function of law often becomes less noticeable than this overt guidance. Dear friends, now let's understand the difference between laws controlling and laws channeling. For instance, a law may declare that contracts can be proved only in particular ways. But the state is not directing contracts can be proved only in particular ways. Here, the state is not directing people to make contracts according to particular formalities. Any formalities which would achieve that aim would have been acceptable to the state. Such a law would be an example of controlling. Dear friends, a contract can be proved by a written agreement outlining terms and conditions. Or a contract can be proved through witness testimony. Or otherwise, a contract can also be proved through emails, text SMS, letters and faxes which establish an offer, acceptance and consideration. Here, any formalities which would achieve the aim of law, that is enough for the state. This is a way of controlling the behavior of the people. On the other hand, a law that required all young men to serve in the army for 2 years when there was no obvious emergency would be channeling it. Meaning, a law requiring mandatory military service without an immediate war or crisis is a pure example of the law's channeling function. This function means the law is not just stopping undesirable actions like a criminal prohibition, but is instead actively directing a specific group of citizens or young men to follow a socially desired path, that is a military service for a defined period of time. This steers their lives and labor toward a state goal rather than just controlling their behavior. Dear friends, now let's understand the relationship between law and society. Dear friends, the law is essentially about order. Here, the society should be able and willing to tolerate legal rules that are not the most efficient that could be devised, which means that nobody can draft a perfect law. There are pros and cons as far as the law is concerned. Hence, the society has to tolerate those kind of legal rules. Dear friends, law and society is a field that examines how legal systems are deeply rooted in the particular needs of society. Now let's consider laws are so particular to the people for whom they are made. Dear friends, it must be admitted that there is an intimate relationship between legal rules and the society in which they operate. A general statement to that effect is to be found in Montesquieu's theory. He claimed that laws are so particular to the people for whom they are made, which means that laws are made for the benefit of that particular society only. Now let's understand with an example that how laws are so particular to the people. Dear friends, countries like Japan has a very low tolerance for even minor public nuisances. This is a reflection of a societal culture that highly values public harmony, order and respect for community space. Friends, severe penalties prescribed in Japan for even minor public nuisance. This is a law especially made for their society. Now let us consider one more example. Dear friends, in UK, India, Australia and Japan all drive on the left. Hence, law requiring all traffic to keep to the left side of the road is really perfect. This specific rule that is a matter of simple custom initially later becomes law. Trying to change this law or implement the opposite rule would cause massive loss to the entire existing legal system and established habit of the people. This is a law particularly made for the Indian society. Hence, laws are so particular to the people for whom they are made according to Montesquieu. The famous Frederick von Savigny claimed that positive law lived in common consciousness of the people. Law was not produced from the arbitrary will of individuals but was created by the spirit of the people that was in all all the individuals together. Dear friends, according to Savigny, law is not made by the state or sovereign, it is an organic development, which means that a language, grammar, structure and vocabulary are not invented by a committee on a single day. They emerge spontaneously and organically from the common usage and shared history of a people. Dear friends, when we consider family and marriage laws, who could marry whom and what was considered as a valid marriage ceremony and how property was divided upon death were all determined by the shared moral, religious and social customs of the community. These were not statutes written by a king, but deeply ingrained practices that reflected the family structure. Hence, laws are so particular to whom they are made according to Savigny. Harvard's Dean Roscoe Pound maintained that law was a social engineering, meaning law is made to the society by balancing various interests among the people. Dear friends, law is used as a tool to balance the interest of the society. Let's consider an example how interest is balanced. Here, the state introduces mandatory vaccinations. What is the individual interest here? The liberty to make personal health choices and refuse medical treatment. And what is the social engineering here? Laws requiring vaccinations for school entry or during public health emergencies. And what is the goal achieved here? The law prioritizes the social interest in public health and safety over the absolute individual interest. Hence, laws are made for the society. Now let's consider one more example. Now the state introduces zoning laws and eminent domain. What is the interest in conflict here? The right to use one's private property however they wish, meaning people are not ready to give their private property. What is the social engineering here? Zoning ordinances restrict land use and allows the government to take private property for public use with just compensation. What is the goal achieved here? The law limits the individual's property right to secure the social interest in a planned, safe and efficient community structure, ensuring orderly development and necessary infrastructure. Hence, laws are so particular to whom they are made. According to Marxist, law is simply the expression of other relations upon which state power rests. So the material life of individuals, which is independent of their will, is the real basis of the state, that is to say, a state in which division of labor and private property are necessary. A simple Marxist example is property law in a capitalist state. The law legally enforces the individual's private ownership of the means of production. This structure, which is independent of the workers' will, establishes the material life where workers must sell their labor to the owners to survive. Therefore, the legal right to private property is not a universal moral truth, but merely the expression of the dominant capitalist economic relation upon which the entire state power rests. Dear friends, all these four theories establishes the close inevitable relationship with society to the needs or desires of the people or its ruling elite. All four theories are appealing and the first three seem prima facie possible. Inevitably, the growth, history and the social, political and religious outlook of a society will have some influence on the legal rules. Law will operate to secure existing interest and to reduce friction. Hence, laws are so particular to whom they are made.